Welcome to the Money Over 50 podcast, brought to you by Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue from Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome to Money Over 50. Today, we're here to talk about how to avoid getting robbed by a financial advisor. Michael, your topic, I think this is a cracker.
Yeah, Dallas, I guess it's the elephant in the room, and unfortunately, stories continue to be, to come out almost every year, definitely every year, as to a financial advisor or a person that's in a position of power. And influence is an unscrupulous person who's misappropriated money for their own benefit and things like that, and i.e. stolen money. So I thought what I wanted to do here is go through some practical methods as to how you would avoid that. Now the real short answer of how you'd avoid that is you actually come and see us.
It's a bit of a sad indictment that one of the real selling points for us is we won't rob you. We actually have integrity and will not rob our clients, and so it's a concern that has to be thought about. But it is something that does happen. Like we often, we get bulletins of different things that we subscribe to where there'll be financial advisors getting struck off for various reasons, and some of the things that you hear about, you just like. It's just straight out theft. I often think this and we did another podcast about, dodgy advisors, partial advisors, and good financial advisors, where sometimes what people say, oh yeah, I had this bad financial advisor, and then what they'll tell you is, okay, well, the financial advisor maybe didn't have hard conversations with them that they needed to have, or the clients maybe didn't necessarily listen to the financial advisor, and maybe there was a few different people at fault. But what we're talking about here today is just the straight out crooks. So this isn't to say, if you've got an advisor and they're, good-hearted sort of a bloke, but they're not going to get you where you need to be, and they're not doing the hard yards, and they're not making you stay accountable. This is just people who are straight out crooks and are straight out stealing money.
Yeah, that's right. And again, a very, very small percentage of the population, but it's a valid fear of consumers. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's no different to any other industry where if you're going to get your car fixed at a mechanic, you have to make a decision as to there's an information imbalance here where if I know nothing about cars. When I take my car to a mechanic, I need to have trust that he is going to do the right thing by me and that he's not going to stitch me up, because if he wanted to, there are a few different ways that he could do it, and it's a similar thing for financial advisors. If you're going to engage a financial advisor, fundamentally they are going to know more about money than you are, and that's just how it is. And so there's no way around that. There's no way around the information imbalance, but there is a few, as you say here, practical tips or things to, I guess, red flags that if any of these occur or you think of these as it relates to your situation, it's probably just worth digging a bit more into it.
So practical tips, and the list isn't exhaustive, so there could be more, but the main one that would encompass everything here that I'd have at the top level is what I call reading the person as well as the paperwork.
Yep.
So what I mean by that is get a good read on the person that's sitting across the table from you there.
Yeah.
If something doesn't add up,
something doesn't feel right
in what they're saying, then trust that instinct.
Yes.
I'd encourage people to trust that instinct. The paperwork can all stack up.
Yeah.
So charlatans around the world have been fantastic at fabricating paperwork or getting paperwork to stack up.
Yeah.
So, the paperwork that they put in front of you, could say all the things that it's supposed to say.
Yeah.
But if you get a read on that person and there's just something that isn't quite right, then you're probably better off going elsewhere.
Yeah.
Because it is your life savings.
That's right. And that's, I think, a good point, that we tend to distrust our instinct in our modern world almost. But if you think of it as, if you're 55, you probably haven't spent a huge amount of time thinking about financial planning and retirement planning. So if you get given paperwork by a financial advisor, you don't have a whole lot of data in your history to look at that and go, well, whatever. If I read through this paperwork, is it going to tell me what I need to do? But if you're 55 and you haven't been living under a rock, you've probably got a huge amount of data sets of people that your intuition tells you whether to trust them or not. You know, by the time you're 55, you've probably been stitched up in a couple of situations where someone that you thought you could trust, you couldn't. Yeah, you got a bad vibe from someone and then later turned out that you were right. All those sorts of things. So I think that, I guess, like I said before, the information imbalance is there. As you say, charlatans can put anything they want on bits of paper, and it's going to be tricky to try and read through that and determine what they're saying there that is true or not true. But if you get a bad read on someone and you just go, there's something about this guy that just doesn't feel right to me, it doesn't stack up, then you should really trust that instinct. And I think that where that gets tricky is that in any change, there's always going to be nervousness. You know, if you're, it's a bit like going to the gym for the first time. You're probably nervous about going to the gym for the first time. That doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't go to that gym or that the gym is a bunch of crooks. It just means that you're nervous about making a change. That's sort of not what we're talking about. We're not talking about the normal nerves of, making a decision. It's more about reading that person sitting across the table from you. If you're meeting this guy and it's all sort of, it should stack up and it should feel good and you should feel really happy about the fact that you've taken control and done all these things and making this happen. That's a pretty big data point to me. If you should feel happy about that and you should feel like you're glad that you've taken the initiative and done this, but there's just this sinking feeling, then don't do it. At the very least, stop and do a bit more digging before you go ahead with anything. Yeah,
I mean, I think there's an abundant list of good financial advisors out there. So I guess in general, if you got a bad read from someone, you're probably better off going elsewhere.
And we say that to people that we meet with, where you go, the most important thing is that you need to be able to trust me. And if you don't, as you said, we know that we're trustworthy, but if I have a new client that comes in and there's just something about me they don't like, or I remind them of, some bloke they used to work with they didn't like, or they don't like my haircut or something a bit, that's fine. They can just go to someone else, and obviously the other guy's not going to be as good as me, but I would much rather they go somewhere where they are going to trust that person and feel comfortable and be able to do the steps that person's going to advise them and actually follow the plan, rather than try and convince themselves that they should be trusting me.
Yeah. The other these two go hand in hand. So statements need to be mailed to you. So I'll back up a little bit.
Yeah.
There's been quite a few cases of when people have been robbed, or funds have been misappropriated and stolen.
Yeah.
There's two common things that have happened there. One is that very often the advisor has had their own in-house fund that they've encouraged people to invest into, and that causes a problem, because when you're running your own in-house fund versus a third party, you can make up your own statements,
basically,
and effectively you can be showing a $500,000 account balance when there might only be $50,000 in there, because $450,000 has been taken out.
Yeah.
So that's a commonality, and again, not to say that any advisor running their own fund is doing that. The vast majority of them are in it for the right reasons, and they're honest people, but it is one of those things.
Yeah.
So and make sure that the statements are mailed to you. So the second one is or
emailed directly from the fund.
Emailed directly from the fund.
The key point you're making there is it not to be funneled through the financial advisor.
Again, so in the second example, sometimes advisors have said we're going to use a bigger non-related fund.
Yeah.
However, they said, look, this is the way the story goes. Look, we'll put down my address as the place to get the statement sent to.
Yeah.
And then I like to, put together my own statements for you that are a little bit more detailed and send them to you and all those types of things. So, again, the official statement's going to the advisor's mailbox as opposed to the client's. Gives itself a chance for things to be misappropriated. So, if you avoid that, and you said, okay, I'm going to have the statements mailed to me or emailed to me directly, and I'm going to invest into a non-related fund.
Yeah.
And in our opinion, bigger is better in this situation. So, for example, Colonial First State is a large superannuation fund in Australia.
Yeah.
So if an advisor said, or Vanguard, or MLC,
Vanguard,
or there's a whole, there's a whole host of them.
Yeah.
So if the advisor had recommended, go into a Colonial First State fund in this example, and the statements were to be emailed directly from that fund to the client, or mailed from the. It just avoids that chance.
Yeah, that's right.
Of trickery, I guess, in that situation.
Yeah. And that's exactly, if you think about that as like, not so much the incentives, but the steps that would have to be taken. There's no way that a financial advisor can get, Vanguard or Colonial First State or MLC, they can't get them to send a statement to the client that is not true. It's just not how it works. Whereas if those funds have sent that directly to the advisor, they could doctor that statement. They could, put something, either edit the statement or muck around, whatever, or put their own spin on things and then send that forward. So they could either doctor that statement, or the other point that you touched on there is if they've got their own fund in-house, if they say, we run our own fund and this is how it works. Again, there's a lot of financial advisors who are doing this and doing the right thing. It's not that that's in and of itself a bad thing, but it is much easier for them to basically make up their own value on how much money is invested in that account, on behalf of that client, because they're in control of that. Whereas you can't get Vanguard. You couldn't pick up the phone and ring Vanguard and say, hey, just say that this amount is there on this statement. It's just not how it works at all. So I think it's sort of surprising, I think, for a lot of people, how the real, like a lot of crooked financial advisors, it's not really high tech, some of the things that they've historically done to steal money from people. That's a fairly common one that we've seen in the past, is an advisor just pulls money out of the client's investment account and does it over a number of years and just sends them their own statement and just says, hey, you've got $500,000 in your account, sends another statement in 6 months' time saying, yeah, you've still got $500,000 in your account, even though they've actually robbed the account and there isn't that money in there. So, I think for most people, we fear like some, cyber crime or hacking, whatever. We're not IT experts by any means, but these are the sorts of things that we have actually seen crooks do in the past, and it's a pretty easy one to get around. It's just to be aware of it.
Yeah, and certainly act quickly if you suspect anything has happened.
Yeah. And I think it is like anything in life, where if you don't feel right about something, there's no reason you can't go back to your advisor and just check. Just get hey, can I get a statement sent directly from the fund? And if they say no, you can't do that, then that's a big red flag. Yeah. Whereas if you want to get a statement directly from the fund and you ring your advisor and they say, yeah, no worries, and it gets posted out to you next week, well then, at the very least, you've at least sort of given yourself a bit of peace of mind. Yeah, you know that there's nothing wrong going on there. I think that's a bit like anything. The minute that someone says, no, just trust me, it's always a red flag in and of itself. And if people want you to trust them and aren't willing to just do the things to help you have that peace of mind, that's a concern.
That's right. Anything to add, Dallas?
No, I think that, so those are realistically the...
Yeah, so we'll recap. Yeah. Overall, read the person as well as the paperwork. Yeah. So get a read on that person sitting across, giving you that advice. If something doesn't feel right, trust your instincts. Yeah. Have the statements mailed to you.
Yeah. Or emailed. So emailed to you. Basically what we're saying is have the statements come directly from the fund provider that you're using. Whoever your super fund provider is, or whoever your advisor has recommended, they should be, they should be sending you information directly. It shouldn't be going via your advisor at all times.
Yeah, and bigger is better here, in our opinion. Yeah. So a third party, such as a third party, what we mean by third party is client, advisor, provider of super fund. So there's usually 3 independent bodies there.
Yeah.
What we're talking about, where it lends itself in certain circumstances to misappropriation is when the advisor and the fund are one and the same. Yeah. So I mean, it is possible then if the advisor is issuing statements for those statements to be false.
Yes.
And be made up. So statements mailed to you, bigger is better, and ideally a third party provider, and read the person as well as the paperwork.
And that's, I guess, like I say there, to wrap up, is if you listen to this and any of those things are resonating with you, then there's no, like everything in life, don't be worried about offending someone. If you've got an advisor you work with for 10 years and you completely trust them, but they've got an in-house fund, you can easily raise that question and say, hey, how do I know, can I get some detail around what that valuation's based on? If they're doing the right thing, they'll be only too happy to provide that information. Or
absolutely. Now, it's a good point you raised there, Dallas, because that misappropriation can happen in-house.
Yeah.
So you can have the advisor who, let's say, owns the business, and they have someone running their own fund.
Yes.
That misappropriation can happen without that advisor knowing.
That's right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they should have certainly, it shouldn't be a situation where you're offending them.
No.
It should, if anything, be a good point to raise because they would want to have their own checks and balances in place as well.
Yep. I've got nothing more to add to that. Like we say, this is just a thing where don't listen to this podcast and then go out there and think we're not saying all advisors except us are crooks. It's
a very, very small percentage. But there has been 2 cases in the news just recently in Sydney.
Yeah.
So 2 high profile people in Sydney. Have they actually weren't advisors, but they were running funds. They were running funds, and they did that. So
and that's, like we say, it's sort of a thing that has been happening forever, and that's why we obviously wanted to raise it. It's that it's not a common thing, but it is a thing that that has happened in the past and does continue to happen. So it's just something to be aware of.
Yep. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Money Over 50 financial advisors. We look forward to catching up again soon.